So hello everyone and welcome to our 2026 Food Bank of Contra, Costa, and Solano's speaker series graduation. I'm really excited to announce that this is our 10th year of doing this program. For those of you who don't know me, I am Hailey and I am the Advocacy and Policy Manager here at the Food Bank. And I'm also honored to say that this is my fourth year participating in this program and my second year facilitating with my colleague Brian Espinoza. This program brings together community members with lived experience of food insecurity and hunger and those passionate about poverty alleviation for 6 weeks to learn about Advocacy 101 and to craft a hunger story to engage with our elected officials to advocate for anti-hunger policies. And at the Food Bank, we truly believe that the best policies are those that are shaped with lived experience. And the speaker series really aims to empower those with said experience to share their stories for real policy change. And so before we jump into the sharing the story section of the program, I do want to just give a few thank yous. So first, I want to thank our peer mentors, Willie Mendoza, Don Manley, Andrew Knorr, Liz Avalos, Gio Dodzinoso, Kai Barnes, and Kiva Dean, who have worked tirelessly over the last 6 weeks with their mentees to craft their hunger stories. We truly could not do the program without all of you. And second, I would like to thank Brian Espinoza, my colleague and co-facilitator, for helping throughout all the 6 weeks. It's been incredible just to have your support. And lastly, I want to say thank you to all the mentees, the participants of the series, for being brave and vulnerable, because it really is not easy to share such emotional and vulnerable parts of one's life. And all of you have done so with such courage and passion. So today in the audience, we are joined by members of our leadership team at the Food Bank, by board members, and of course, our elected official, Senator Jesse Arreguín. So I will go ahead and read the senator's bio before we jump in to the stories. So elected to represent the 7th Senate District in November 2024, State Senator Jesse Arreguín is a lifelong advocate for economic and social justice. He brings 20 years of local and regional government experience as a Berkeley City Council member, the mayor of Berkeley, and as president of the Association of Bay Area Governments. The son and grandson of migrant farm workers, Senator Arreguín was born in Fresno and grew up in San Francisco. He was raised in a working-class household where his parents instilled the values of hard work, public service, and giving back to others. A lifelong renter, he faced housing insecurity growing up in San Francisco's expensive and scarce housing market. Senator Arreguín began his activism at the age of 9 years old, working to name a street in his hometown after Cesar Chavez. For over 30 years, he has been a passionate advocate for workers' rights, immigrant rights, housing justice, the environment, and democracy. He moved across the San Francisco Bay to get his degree at UC Berkeley, go Bears, and served the Berkeley community as an elected official on the Rent Stabilization Board, City Council, and as the first Latino elected mayor of Berkeley. During his time as Berkeley's mayor, he passed a housing bond and oversaw zoning reforms that resulted in the largest housing construction boom Berkeley has seen in decades, including 1,000 units of affordable housing. His successful efforts to rehouse the homeless led to a 45% decrease in unsheltered homelessness. He led Berkeley during the first Trump presidency, strengthening the city's sanctuary policy and standing up to hate groups. He also authorized legislation to strengthen civilian oversight of police while advancing reforms to shift mental health calls from police to trained social workers. And Senator, we just want to thank you so much for being here, for all the support that you and your team have given us and the Food Bank. And I do just want to mention that all of the stories do at the end have a legislative ask, and those legislative asks do reflect our 2025 legislative agenda. So some of the bills that are mentioned may have been passed, may still, be, in the legislative cycle, but may have a different number. But we want to include this for all the participants to have practice, making a legislative ask.
Good evening, Senator Arreguín. My name is Carolina Jarquin. I'm a participant in the Food Bank of Contra Costa in Solano's 2026 speaker series, and I am a hunger fighter. Before I retired from the federal government, I was a hungry teenager trying to survive high school. At 16, I lost my entire support system and I was struck with homelessness, a season in my life I was not prepared for. I was fortunate to find an angel, Mimi, a 90-year-old French woman who rented me a small room. But even with shelter, food was never guaranteed. My only meal each day was the free lunch at school, and if I was lucky, a small carton of chocolate milk. On weekends, Mimi sometimes shared her lentils, but I mostly survive on chips and cottage cheese, foods that still bring me comfort to this day. Hunger wasn't a moment in my life, it was my constant companion. Even though those years were the hardest, they built my resilience and compassion. Today, food insecurity in Solano County affects over 22,000 households. Many of them are children who are trying to learn while hungry, children who feel invisible just as I did. My journey through hunger has called me to action. Hunger is not inevitable, it is solvable. Together, we can be the hands and feet that bring nourishment, dignity, and hope to those who need it most. I'm here today, Senator Arreguín, to ask you to be the angel our community needs, just as Mimi was for me. I'm asking for your strong support of Assembly Bill 3112. Food insecurity is urgent and painful, and this bill brings us closer to ensuring no child's potential is limited by an empty stomach. Thank you.
Greetings, Senator Advocacy. My name is Karen McElroy. I'm also a 2026 graduate of the Solano Speaker Series. I'm a retired director and currently a licensed minister running a food pantry. Now, my story is about two women and a baby. I was connected to these two women and their baby, and their living conditions was very challenging. They lived from motels, tents, shelters, even sometimes homemade cardboard boxes. And they lived off the SNAP program. And you know what was interesting? I didn't realize that the SNAP program, 49.2% of the households receiving SNAP have children. But these two ladies, they faced choices between whether they were going to eat or whether they were going to sleep. And sometimes their decisions resulted in illegal actions. They would take that little baby everywhere with them, from corner to corner, hoping that someone would have mercy and see this adorable child who was very malnutrition, but they would dig deeper in their pockets and give them money. We had a lot of programs, and we do have a lot of programs within the city, but unfortunately, without transportation and an address, they cannot participate in all of the programs. Unfortunately, sir, this story does not have an unfavorable ending. It left a child with mental, physical, and dental damage, minus two parents. Infants within the homeless population require specialized nutrition. Shopping carts are used for storage and a refrigeration. So, Senator, I first want to thank you for your continued support of H.R. 1510, the Nutrition Act, but I'm asking strongly for more programs. We need more nutritional programs for the babies that it will enhance their overall growth and give them a chance and a fair opportunity in life. Thank you for your time, Senator.
Greetings, Senator Arreguín. My name is Anne Marie McClure, and I too am a participant of the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano's 2026 Speaker Series. I am here to personally advocate for Senate Bill 411. During my 37 years of service with the Postal Service, I have been a dedicated supporter of the initiative to stamp out hunger in the United States through the National Association of Letter Carriers Food Drive, which has been taking place annually for the past 33 years. For this, support was rudimentary. In addition, the church of which I'm a member started a food pantry in 2008. I was not an active participant on this committee until 2023, when I was asked to temporarily assist the team. This assistance was quite an awakening. I had never seen so many people line up by foot or in their cars to receive food items. I was surprised, dismayed, and grateful all at the same time. I was especially touched by a woman who came through every month on a bicycle. She had 4 children and needed food. This woman would hang the bags of food on the bicycle handles as she struggles to walk and push the bicycle. This is when I realized I had to continue to support this effort. Our food pantry statistics indicates that 90% of recipients have at least 2 children under the age of 16. With over 12 million children in the U.S. facing hunger, I am asking you to vote in favor of Stop Child Hunger Act. It's Senate Bill 411. Thank you for your time and for representing our state.
Good evening, Senator Arreguín. My name is Wilson-Keltz, and I'm a participant in the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano's 2026 Speaker Series. Today, I come before you as a mother who has experienced hunger firsthand, and as an advocate who now serves families living with that same reality. When my infant daughter was just 3 months old, she was hospitalized and then later underwent a life-saving liver transplant at 7 months old. In the aftermath of that medical crisis, my family entered a new kind of trauma. For nearly 3 years, we struggled to regain stability. Ultimately, we lost our housing and we found ourselves living in tents, surviving on food pantries and at the compassion of strangers, while trying to keep our young children safe. Hunger doesn't always look the way that people imagine it. Sometimes it looks like parents lying awake at night, quietly calculating how to ration just enough to get by. I know those nights. One of the most painful realities we faced was navigating systems that weren't designed for families like ours. We were turned away from shelters, assistance, and public resources time and again because we were a family unit and my husband was a part of that. Too often, help was offered, but only if we were willing to separate. As a parent, hunger feels different than it does for yourself. You can endure an empty stomach, but knowing that your children are hungry creates a fear that never truly leaves. Today, food insecurity in Solano County affects over 22,000 households, many parents living with that same fear. And that's why I urge you to support SB 411. I stand here today because someone chose compassion when my family had nothing. So please help ensure that no family caring for a vulnerable child or any child must rely solely on luck and charity to survive. Because hunger is quiet, but the consequences are lasting. And whether a child in California eats tonight is not determined by fate, but it's determined by choices made in rooms like this. Thank you for your time.
Hello, Senator Arreguín. My name is Paulette Foster, and I'm a participant in the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano 2026 Speaker Series. I'm here today to advocate for Assembly Bill 337, which addresses food waste and strengthens food recovery efforts in California. I was born in 1948 in San Francisco at the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard housing. I was one of 6 children growing up in the community of many families who migrated from the South. Jobs were scarce for people of color and money was tight. There was no space to grow food where we lived, and food was often expensive for families like mine. One of my earliest memories of getting free food was from the slaughterhouses in our neighborhood, which were also known as Butcher Town. Families would go there to receive items like neck bones, pig feet, oxtails, chicken backs, and other cuts that stores couldn't sell. In a way, those places acted like the early recovery centers by making sure that food that might have gone to waste helped feed struggling families. It was like a food bank. We also relied on beans, greens, and vegetables raised by friends who had gardens. It wasn't always easy. As a child, I suffered with severe eczema and allergies to many food, so my family had to carefully watch what I ate. But we made it. We made it through. Today, food recovery remains incredibly important. According to the California Department of Food and Agriculture, Californians store away about 5 to 6 million tons of food each year. Assembly Bill 337 would help expand funding our programs that recover edible food and distribute it to people who are in need. Senator Aguirre, I respectfully ask for your support of Assembly Bill 337. Expanding food recovery programs can help reduce waste and ensure families have access to healthy food. Thank you so much for listening to my story.
Hello, Senator Arreguín. My name is Melvin Jones. I am a participant of the Food Bank of the Contra, Costa, and Solano 2026 Speaker Series. I also volunteer at the Boys and Girls Empowerment Group. I am on the Lions Executive Club, and I sit on 3 city commissions. I face food insecurity since I can remember. I personally feel the importance of having food banks in and around your neighborhood. When I was young, I helped one of the older gentlemen distribute food to other people, to older people from the food truck. He would give me extra food box to take home. The box of food would often be all we had to eat most days. The cheese log made the best grilled cheese sandwiches. The fruit cocktail, peanut butter, and oatmeal helped make cookies for desserts. It wasn't a lot, but it helped. Having food banks keeps some families from committing crimes just to feed their families. Research shows that even a small increase in food insecurities is linked to higher crime rates. As a disabled person who is now confined to a wheelchair, I find myself in need of help from food banks again. Not having a place of my own and using the limited amount of income that I do have to help with utilities and other expenses doesn't leave me with a lot of money for food. So I use the food bank so I don't have to choose between eating and getting medication. They call it comfort food because it is the comfort you get from knowing you don't have to lie, cheat, and steal to get food for you and your family. Senator Arreguín, I urge you strongly, please, for your support for H.R. 3037, Closing the Meal Gap Act. We need to close the gap between the real cost of food and the amount of benefits families get, because no one should have to choose crime in order to feed themselves or their families. Thank you very much for your time.
Hello, Senator Advocacy. My name is Verne. I am a resident of Solano County and an active participant in the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano 2026 Speaker Series. As a volunteer at City Church Food Pantry, I want to share with you a family I met. They have 3 boys, ages 8, 10, and 11. Both parents are still together. Since the father got laid off 2 years ago, he works odd jobs just to make ends meet. The mother goes to different food pantries to get whatever food they have to provide a meal for her family every day. At times, it's hard for her to get around because they only have one vehicle. So she rides public transportation, or sometimes a friend takes her. They've been struggling for 2 years, and with little help in the county, they strongly rely on the food bank and other local food pantries. Every day, I see many families that come here day to day, getting what food we have to offer. City Church feeds over 100 families a day who need food. We partner with the food bank and other local grocery stores to get food donations so we can help feed the people in our community. So you see, that is why I strongly urge your support on H.R. 3037, Closing the Meal Gap Act. It is volunteers like myself that make a difference in a family that is struggling with no food. So please, Senator Arreguín, help make a difference. My name is Verne, and I approve this message.
Good evening. My name is Evelyn Quinteros. I am a resident of Contra Costa County and a current participant in the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano Speaker Series. I speak to you today to advocate for a federal bill known as the Lift the Bar Act. One of my challenges is being an immigrant in this country. I had just escaped from an abusive relationship that had almost ended my life in 1999. When I left that relationship, my 3 kids and I became homeless. I lost my family and friends. I felt ashamed and humiliated to ask for some food for my kids. At times, my son would ask me to buy some McDonald's, and I could not even afford that at the time. I comforted him by saying, soon, will soon. How do you make a kid at that age understand you can't buy a simple French fry for him? Immigrants still need so much support today, and they are being demonized simply for seeking a better life in our country. That is why I'm advocating for this Lift the Bar Act, which would restore accessibility of federal safety net programs like a SNAP for lawfully present immigrants. Non-citizens households are almost twice as likely to report food insecurity compared to U.S.-born households. So reopening federal access to food benefits is critical to our immigrant communities. Today, as a bilingual case manager, I work with immigrant families that I see struggling every day to bring a piece of bread to their table for their kids to have something to eat. Their stories resonate in my heart and remind me of where I come from. Food will alleviate a bit of the stress to move forward with honor. Senator Arreguín, I humbly ask you to continue supporting our fellow immigrants in my advocacy for the Lift the Bar Act. Thank you very much.
My name is Yolanda, and I'm a resident of Contra Costa, and I'm a participant in the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano Speaker Series. My story begins when I was 6 years old. I grew up with a single mother who worked very hard to raise my sister and me, but there were still many days when we didn't have enough food. In Mexico, there's a saying, if the chicken doesn't lay an egg, you don't eat that day. That was sometimes our reality. As a child, I didn't understand why we went hungry when my mom worked so hard. When we came to California in the early 1990s, things were still difficult. My mom struggled to find work while raising 2 girls in a new place. I remember traveling all day without eating. When we finally arrived, my uncle gave me a peanut butter sandwich. I had never tasted peanut butter before, and I was so hungry that I still remember that moment clearly. As we grew older, my mom started taking us to food banks in Pittsburgh. Those food banks helped our family survive during very difficult times. Now, as an adult, I'm a single mother myself with 2 children. I work hard, but like many families, there are still times when things are difficult. Programs like CalFresh and food banks continue to help families like mine put food on the table. My experience has taught me something important. No child should go hungry when there is so much food in our communities. That's why programs that support food banks and families are so important. Sometimes something as simple as a peanut butter sandwich can mean everything to a hungry child. More than 45,000 children experience food insecurity across Contra Costa and Solano counties. That's why I am asking for your support of H.R. 3204, Universal School Meals Programs Act. Thank you.
Hello, Senator Arreguín. My name is Penny Exner. I am currently working as a mobile dignity driver for Loaves and Fishes of Contra Costa. I am also presently a participant of the 2026 Contra Costa Solano County Food Bank Speaker Series. My struggles with food insecurity have unfortunately been most of my life. I was married at 17 years old. In 1995, I had enough courage to divorce and leave the toxic relationship I was in with my abusive husband. I struggled to make ends meet, which then led to me losing my house. I was really struggling to provide for my children, so with the best interest in mind, I gave custody of my children to my parents. I became addicted to crystal meth. I unfortunately was again in another domestic violence relationship and homeless again. I was able to leave that relationship after some time. In 1999, I met my now husband, whom I had been with for the last 27 years, but our lives, as we ended up addicted to drugs together. He ended up in jail, and I had nowhere to go again. Homeless, hungry, and addicted, that's when I found Loaves and Fishes. They welcomed me with respect and dignity and fed me without question or judgment. In 2001, 11 days before my daughter was born, I got clean. I did 2 drug programs and lived in 2 homeless shelters. I worked my program. To survive, we also got food from the food bank. For the last almost 25 years, I have been meth-free, taking care of my mother and family. In 2022, COVID was drawing to an end, so I saw a post about Loaves and Fishes culinary class. I applied and was quickly accepted. During the 12-week class, we did community dinners. I love the community dinners tremendously. Just knowing how it felt to be on the other side of the door made me want to do more. I felt like this is where I was supposed to be. Soon after graduation, I was hired as a dining room assistant. I loved it. I got to know my clients and their stories, and I could in turn be there at the door, ready to serve the nutritious meal we made fresh that day. I am doing what I love, 3,000 meals daily, cooking and nourishing lives as well as my own in the process. That is why I support HR 2512, the Hot Foods Act. Everyone deserves warm nourishment. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And I just want to thank all of you for not only your participation in this program, and your support of the food bank, which is so essential now more than ever, but your bravery in sharing these deeply personal stories. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard to talk about the struggles that you have gone through. And I know from personal experience, as somebody who grew up in poverty and faced housing insecurity and briefly experienced homelessness, those are hard things to talk about. But it's important that we talk about them and acknowledge the lived experience that we have, so that we understand the challenges that so many Californians face, and why it's essential that we invest in these critical programs, and continue to invest and strengthen our safety net here in California and the United States. I'm honored to represent West Contra Costa County. So the cities of Rodeo, Hercules, San Pablo, Pinole, El Sobrante, Kensington, El Cerrito, and Richmond, in the California State Senate. And to build on the work of my predecessor, Senator Nancy Skinner, who was an incredible champion for expanding food access in the state of California. In fact, she wrote successful legislation to ensure that California provides universal school meals on every school campus in the state of California. And we are continuing that investment even during very difficult budget times. I was honored last year to chair the Senate Committee on Human Services, which has responsibility over all bills relating to the state CalFresh program, as well as a number of critical safety net programs in the state of California as well. And working hard with my colleagues in the legislature to stop the harm that's being created by the Trump administration, which could result in hundreds of thousands of Californians to lose their SNAP CalFresh benefits due to changes in work rules and literally kicking people off of eligibility, people who desperately need this assistance. And we saw the impact of the prolonged government shutdown and how that impacted people accessing nutrition assistance in our state, and just the incredible fear and uncertainty that created for so many families. Thankfully, we stepped in the minute that the federal courts issued a decision that suspended the Trump administration's cruel, USDA's cruel, for the first time in 60 years, clawing back of essential SNAP benefits. We got those benefits out there immediately, but I just want to lift up the work of Contra Costa County, who allocated emergency funding. So in the event that those benefits did not come, that we could provide debit cards to Contra Costa residents to make sure that they can continue to pay for essential groceries and food. Sadly, we know that HR 1, the big ugly bill, as I call it, will result in so many changes to CalFresh in California. And so we're working to stop the harm, working to expand funding for the Cal Food program, and specifically to expand funding for our food banks. During our food banks and talking to Contra Costa Food Bank and Alameda County Food Bank, we saw a 400% increase in people that are accessing groceries and meals. And I just want to lift up the incredible work of so many volunteers who came to volunteer their time, who are giving money to support the essential work of the Food Bank of Contra Costa and Solano and the food banks throughout the state of California. And the state needs to step in by providing $60 million to make sure that we can help support the work of our food banks, because we know that people are going to rely on our food banks now more than ever. I think it's absolutely cruel and inhumane that in the wealthiest country in the world, the wealthiest state in the country, we're the fourth largest economy of the world. Not too far away from here, we have Silicon Valley. Even in Contra Costa County, there are very affluent communities. We're seeing widespread poverty, income inequality. We know that the cost of housing, the cost of healthcare is too high in the state. And people shouldn't have to choose between putting a roof over their head and getting healthcare, paying for medication, and being able to feed themselves. But we know so many people have to make that choice every single day. And that's unacceptable. And so I just want to express my strong commitment, not just to the federal bills that were talked about. I'm a member of the California legislature. I'm not in the United States Congress, but I fully support those bills because I think they're critical to invest in school-based meals and critical food assistance throughout the United States. And I'm proud to say I did vote for Senate Bill 411 last year by Senator Perez, and will continue to support that bill if it moves forward in the future. And we are working, like I said, on trying to get funding in the state budget to not just mitigate the harm that HR 1 is going to create for so many people, but making sure that we are investing in our critical partners like our food banks that are going to be part of this infrastructure that we need now more than ever. Once again, this is deeply personal to me. I think the struggles that my family experienced, facing housing insecurity and struggling to put a roof over our head and to feed our family, really motivate me in this critical work, not just fighting for affordable housing, but fighting to protect our social service safety net. And we know 1 in 5 Californians face some level of food insecurity, and 5.5 million are reliant on CalFresh to support their nutritional needs. Seniors and youth are more likely to be on CalFresh than students. And so when the federal government is threatening significant cuts to SNAP and changes in eligibility, that's why we took action last year. I introduced a resolution in the Senate calling on Congress to oppose these cuts. It was a bipartisan resolution, but I say Republicans and Democrats came together to support that. That's why last year, we worked to make sure we got the benefits out the door. That's why we're working to make sure that as we're developing our state budget, that we're investing in our food banks, Cal Food, and making sure that we can expand and maintain eligibility for people to get access to CalFresh benefits. So, I'm strongly committed to making sure that no one in our communities in our state, including in my district in Contra Costa County, has to go to bed hungry. I mean, what could be more essential? Housing, healthcare, and food? What world are we living in now that these things are political bargaining chips, or things that there's no guarantee people will have? I believe that those are essential responsibilities of government. And if they're not going to do it, if the federal government's going to retreat on its responsibility to provide humane, compassionate leadership, California will step in. And I just want to also lift up that the investment in SNAP and CalFresh isn't just helping support food insecure individuals and families, it's also supporting our local economy. So this is about also supporting our local economy, our small businesses, our grocery stores in our communities as well, making sure that we can support those small businesses in our communities. So in closing, I'll just say that I'm really just deeply grateful for the opportunity to hear these really powerful stories. And thank you for your courage and your willingness to share your experiences. I think the more that we can humanize and talk about what we have endured and why it's so essential that we support these critical programs and laws is essential. Because oftentimes up here in Sacramento, we hear a lot of statistics and we talk about things in the abstract. We talk about code sections and laws, but really what our laws are about are creating a just and civil society. And our laws are about people. What we're doing are helping people. And so I'm a committed partner in working with you in this important work. Thank you very much for your engagement and support and partnership. And I think together we need to come together now more than ever. Our communities need us now more than ever, and know that you have a committed partner working with you to make sure that nobody goes hungry in California. So thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Senator. And we're so lucky to have you, as a partner in this fight. And we're so blessed to live in a state that is really trying to combat a lot of these, the implementations and harm that HR1 will do. So we just thank you so much for being here and for your time.